Religion is a way of explaining how the world works. Throughout human existence, men have explained the world in terms of the actions of many kinds of gods. Today, many people try to explain the world in terms of science. But we have not given up the idea of God. It's still comforting to put responsibility for our lives in someone else's hands.
The ancient Egyptians had many gods, with many different responsibilities. Among the earliest were gods of the elements: earth, air, sky, and the life-giving Nile. Other gods were associated with animals the Egyptians prized or feared. But gods were also associated with specific tasks or activities, such as ibis-headed Thoth, patron god of scribes and god of wisdom. Many gods were worshipped only in particular nomes or cities, while others, such as Osiris, were worshipped throughout the whole of Egypt. Myths and stories about the gods explained the creation of earth and of life upon it, and provided guidance for human conduct. These stories were acted out in great religious festivals, led by Pharaoh and the high priests, but with the joyous participation of all the people. Each god was provided with permanent shrines or temples, and with priests to carry out rituals of worship. Worship of hundreds of different gods continued throughout Egyptian history, except for a strange 30-year period around 1400 BC, when the pharaoh who called himself Akhenaten was on the throne. Akhenaten ordered that only one god, the sun disk Aton, be worshipped in Egypt. Hymns were sung to Aton.
The birds leave their nests and lift their wings in adoration of thee. All the beasts leap to their feet. All winged creatures who fly live when thou hast shone upon them.
But with Akhenaten's death, the older gods gradually returned and were never dislodged again from Egypt.
Because of their firm belief in the afterlife, the ancient Egyptians spent a great deal of time and resources looking after the dead. At first it was thought that only the pharaoh could live in the land of the gods after death. But soon the belief arose that any man would be judged by Osiris and given a place in the afterlife according to the life he had led on earth. The Egyptians believed that each person consisted of 4 elements. The first 2 were the body and its shadow. When a man died, these became inactive. The ka, or soul, was the 3rd element and was always represented by upraised hands. The ka left the body at death and went to be judged by Osiris in the hall of the dead. The ka then remained outside the body but close to it in the tomb, waiting for a final day of judgment when soul and body would be reunited. The Egyptians preserved the bodies of their dead as mummies, so they would be ready for this day of judgment. The 4th element was the ba, or spirit, always shown as a human-headed bird. The ba had the freedom to leave the body altogether and make brief trips back to the land of the living. It was because of these beliefs that the Egyptians provided their dead with the elaborate tombs we know so well. And filled those tombs full of furniture, clothing, food and drink that the dead would need in the afterlife.
But the poor had no tombs. Often their bodies were simply dumped in the Nile. And some Egyptians questioned the elaborate ritual of burying and providing for the dead.
The nobles and the glorious departed likewise are buried in their tombs. But what has happened to their places now? Their walls have crumbled. Their places no longer exist. Therefore enjoy each day that comes and do not weary. For behold, no one returns who has once departed.